So let's jump into the 4 things that we need to know to make sure your estimate is correct. They are property, usage, model and size, and your optional finishes, those things that are going to make it personalized to you. Starting from the ground up, we're going to hit property. That's going to be really important because that's going to dictate what you can do. How big is your property? How big is your structure, right? It matches up. So the first thing that's really good for us as far as going to be really pretty much required to get you an accurate estimate is your property address. We need to know where you're going to build. We need to know what the design criteria for that address is. Now, you might have some a new property. It's undeveloped and you don't have an address yet. That's okay. You can give us some coordinates. So if you're not familiar with latitude, longitude, you can go to Google, drop a pin on your map, and that'll give you coordinates, and you can just send those to us. Link us to that map. That'd be great. I would love to see where your property is. A site map is fantastic for us. Gives us a really good idea of what your property is and how the barn is going to fit. So that's a great way to get us coordinates. What we do with those, like I said, is we check your criteria. That is your climatic and geographical criteria. Those are things like snow, wind, seismic, fire even is a good thing to know. All of those things will affect your building. So we want to know what those are. For instance, we have, and I should just start with our standard package, it is pre-engineered to specific criteria. And so that covers about 85% of the country, but you might have something elevated. Snow, for instance, is a good one. We come across that all the time for my friends in Colorado, Utah, places like that when you're in those mountainous areas. And you might have a heavy snow load, 60, 80 pounds per square foot. We are definitely going to be needing to engineer specifically to that. Make sure that your materials are heavier, your braces are there, and everything is set to meet that code. And that is something that our package does include. Our blueprints and our engineering calculations will meet your code, your local code, and it is going to be designed to your specifications. The criteria meet those or exceed those criteria for your area. So that's why we will need your address, and those climatic items will affect your estimate if they're elevated. The other thing to know that might affect that's related to your property is your permitting. So your local permitting authority, whether that be city, county, you're going to be wanting to check with them. Probably the sooner the better, because they're going to tell you what you can build. Some counties have restrictions on size. ADUs is a good one. You know, you might not be able to get more than 900 square feet if you're going to build an accessory dwelling unit, you know, that mother-in-law apartment. So that's a good thing to understand and make sure you know what that criteria is, because we do an estimate for you on a 1,200 square foot apartment and then come back and find out no, they're not going to let you do that. So we're starting from scratch, and that's okay. We do that all the time, but knowing that ahead of time is going to get you accurate. HOA restrictions, that's another point. If you're in a community that has rules, that's a good thing to be checking into before you get your estimate going. We've come across a number of situations where there were height restrictions. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're not doing this tall structure that's ideal for you, but the community says, no, that's a little too tall. We want to make sure that's going to be adjusted correctly. So choosing the model, that helps quite a bit. And again, site plan, like I said, that's a really good piece because that really speaks to your layout. It speaks to where your barn can go, your building can go. There's going to be easements and setbacks, and a site plan usually takes those into account. The other thing that's good to know about that is where your driveway is, where your access points is, because that's where your doors are going to be. And that's something that we want to discuss as we go through your estimate and get that layout set up. Usage goes into that, kind of rolls right from that site plan, and where your doors and things are going to be goes right into usage. We have our shops, our structures, they are categorized into three categories. We have barn, shop, and residential. Barns are pretty much for animals. They will predominantly have posts in the center. And that's great because it'll gives you bays that you're going to be able to set up stalls, attach them to the posts, so all your structural components are there. Shops are generally going to have open interiors. They're going to be trusses, no posts. That's great for equipment. And then residential, that's kind of speaks to itself. Those are barns that are designed and engineered specifically for residential living spaces. That kind of brings me to when you're talking about uses, agricultural versus residential uses, that's pretty important. I get a lot of people that say, hey, I love your Olympic and I want to put an apartment up there. And that's great. A lot of people have done that. However, the Olympic is not designed, that's one of our barn structures, it is not designed to pass residential code. So depending on what your permit requirements are, it may not be the building for you. We would look at a residential structure like the Denali, and that obviously is going to have some price differences for an estimate. So that's good to know. We do have some resource articles that cover that. There is one actually specifically comparing agricultural to residential that talks more in detail about that. And if you're considering putting an apartment in your barn or doing a residence, do look at that. That'll give you some great information. Priorities is a good thing to think about when you're talking about uses. Okay, so you want a garage, but you also want a yoga studio and a wood shop and maybe an art gallery for your wife or something along those lines. I have a lot of clients that will come to me and have 3, 4, 5 uses that they want to get into the same building. Sometimes that doesn't work out great. A long time ago, somebody said to me that a camel is a horse by committee. What that kind of means is if you're going to give your building too many uses, it's not going to be really great for one thing or the other. So I like to tell people, hey, if you really want a garage, this is your primary usage, let's set it up for that, because your garage you're probably going to use every day. If you're driving back and forth to work, you're heading out for the weekends, you're going in and out of this every day. Your shop, maybe you're using on the weekends, so that might be your secondary priority, and you go on from there. So think about your priorities when you're thinking about your usage and what structure, whether it be a barn, shop, or residential, is going to be your top priority, and that's where we will start with that. Which rolls me right into models, because we've got those models, like I said, those models are categorized. And then within that category, we have several different models. It's fun to look, and the nice thing about these models is they're different sizes, so you're going to be able to expand and contract. Now our website shows our standard sizes, our most popular sizes, and those sizes can be expanded. So I think one of our Olympic, for instance, goes up to 72, but we've done them much longer. And we can expand them in 12-foot increments, because that's generally what we build on, is a grid. There's more information about our grids and our sizes and our patterns in our resource articles, and we'll be sure that those are linked. But there is more information in that, in how to understand post and frame building, excuse me. So there's some resource articles about that, and I would say check that out as well. But as far as size goes, your usage really is going to dictate that. So if you're looking for a garage, you've got a lot of equipment, you might not want posts, so you're looking at one of our shop models. How big does it need to be? Well, okay, do you want a 2-car garage, 3-car garage? Are you putting a big RV in there? What is your purpose, and what's the size? If you have a 40-foot RV, a 36-foot shop isn't going to do it. So we need to talk about that. Printing out the floor plans is a really great way to get an idea. And I recommend to most of my clients, when you're doing that, you're going to print those out, and then you're going to draw out where you want things to go. How does it fit on your property? Where your door is going to be, access, what's going to be a good feel for you. And it's a great exercise. I have other clients who will go outside and stake out the property. So if you're putting this on somewhere where you already live, that's a good exercise too. And that'll give you a good idea of the size. I talked to a lot of people about, which one to go. I get a lot of customers. They'll say, okay, I want to quote on a 36 and I want a 48. My thought on that is bigger generally is better. I have not ever had anybody say, oh my goodness, I built a barn that's too big. I have, however, had clients that are calling me within a year wanting to expand their barn or build a new structure because, as soon as I got this barn up, my wife got 2 more horses. So that happens, and that's really important to take into account when you're looking at size, what you're going to need, and planning for the future and planning for expansion. There's some great ways to do that. Any one of myself or any one of our representatives here can talk to you about how that might go. So be sure to tell them, hey, this is what I need now, and in the future, I'm thinking of this. And we'll keep that in mind for you as we walk you through this process. Use and aesthetics is probably something to think about. You're going to have to sometimes choose one of the others. But the type model that you choose is going to be something that's going to look good to you and be useful as well. So the final section is 4 is our options and finishes. These are what we use to personalize your barn. A lot of times they're going to be decorative. There are some structural options, and some of them you won't see online. So do ask your representative about certain things like post removal, or maybe you need a taller building for more clearance. So those things are good to know. And finally, to give you a really good idea what that is like, we're going to go ahead and do the walkthrough right now. We've got a fabulous Olympic 48-horse barn. It's got all the amenities, and we're going to go ahead and bring that up on the screen. This is going to be a PowerPoint. We've got some slides here, so I'm going to click that up, and I'm going to open that up for you. And we've got these items listed. If you're not familiar with, if you don't know the difference between a cupola and a clear story, again, we have another resource article that clarifies that. We'll make sure that that's linked, and you can go there and check that out. But for now, my assistants here have marked these, and that's a great way to go. Justin is over there taking credit right now, so thank you very much for that, Justin. He will also be reading your questions, so if you've messaged us questions, when we get to that portion, he's going to go ahead and read through those. But let's start with this Olympic barn. This is an agricultural building designed for horses. We're looking at the front of it right now, and what we've got here is we've got an open shed roof, and we've got a partially enclosed shed roof. Now the Olympic comes with a shed roof, so the open shed roof is there for you to have, or for you already. So on this model, we added the shed roof, and it is partially enclosed. We'll talk about a little bit more of that when we see some interior shots. They also added some windows up here in the gable end, which is great for the interior light. They've done a timber truss accent, which is a nice decorative feature, really gives you that barn look. And they've gone with breezeway doors that are classic. Now these are all upgrades from our standard models, but it really makes a good, just really makes a nice upscale finish. So, and gives you windows in your breezeway door, which is really nice. So we can have the next slide. The cupola here, we'll start from the top. The cupola, this is a lighthouse cupola, rolls right in, gives you beautiful interior light. It is an upgrade. The standard cupola is a cedar cupola, vented, usually is functional so that your barn will breathe. But in this case, we upgraded that to a lighthouse cupola. This partial shed dormer is also an upgrade or a difference from the standard. Our Olympic has 2 gable, 4-foot gable dormers on it, and so this was an addition to that. They actually did another one on the other side, so that was another addition. So we have essentially an upgrade or an exchange and an addition. And then this again, you can see is another angle of the partially enclosed shed roof. And we can go to the next slide. And this is from the other side. Again, this is that dormer that I was talking about. You can see this open shed roof. In this case, she used it for cover for the paddock, and then the Dutch doors are in here. You can see a little bit about through the interior here, but overall, this is a really nice barn, and again, very, very well finished. We can go to the next slide, please. This is the rear of the barn. This customer did put a deck. This is a party barn. The horses are here. When you see the interior, you will also want to come and live in this barn, have parties and live in this barn. And you may have picked up on this from the pictures, but this partially enclosed shed roof is actually, they did put some guest quarters in there. So we'll take a look at that here in a minute. But otherwise, the rear, there are some additions, a second timber truss, so you've got one front and back, and more windows for light. We can go to the next slide. This is just another angle of the rear, just to give you a little bit different look at it. I mean, they did some amazing, isn't that just some amazing landscaping? Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a little bit closer to the rear side here. Again, you can see that this is the enclosed. They've added windows to this and turned this into a living space. So these are all upgrades that need to be added. And let's go to the next slide. And I think we've got just a different angle, same of the side, and nothing new to report. All right, so on the interior, we will take a look at this. This is an amazing interior. These are all classic, European classic stalls. Classic is a company that we partner with. They're upscale stall fronts, and this is also a stall grill. They ship directly to you from the manufacturer. We have our own stalls, but this is an upgrade, and it's just a beautiful package. This barn also has all the lining, so you have pine-covered ceilings. You have stall lining as well. They went with clear posts, so they no pressure treated posts. This barn is not post and ground, so they did they traded the pressure treated posts for these clear posts, and that just gives you a beautiful aesthetic. And then we've got this gorgeous lining in here as well. They also did some pavers. There's rubber pavers here, so you can really see they've really dressed this barn up. And they have a unique loft system. The loft is typically a third going right through here. And this point is actually going to be what I call a donut loft. So she did a different loft configuration. So we can go to the next slide. And here's another shot of that loft. They put in some beautiful chandeliers. These are all the chandelier, the railing, these are all things that the customer added to finish this barn. Not things that we would include necessarily, but their customer did add that. You can go to the next slide. This is our tack room. They did a different type of door, so again, more upgrades. They went to give you a higher level of finish. And this wash bay, I think we have another shot of that. Let's jump to that. There we go. This wash bay is the materials. This overhead boom for the wash bay is fantastic. The lighting, all of this comes with our wash bay package. But in this case, this client went ahead and put in this wall finish. This is not something that we provide, but she wanted to go this. Normally, that would be a wood T&G. Next slide. This is the interior of that guest space. So that covered shed roof that they partially enclose, this is the interior of that. We can have the next slide. And this is a tack room. Again, you can see they did some nice finishes in here. You can finish this any way you want. You can leave it pretty basic. You can have open rafters up here and just have a couple great stands for your saddles. That will work, but obviously this barn did a little bit more than that. The feed room, this is going to be just obviously feed, the great area. These are all 12 by 12 bays, by the way. The next slide. Your loft from upstairs, this gives you a good idea of how open and spacious this barn is and what it looks like downstairs. And all of this finish that they did just to turn it into a party barn. The thing to point out here is that these are the interiors of this gable dormer, and that gives you a huge headspace. If you look at this angle here compared to this up here, you can see there's a massive amount of headspace that makes this much more functional upstairs, and that's a real benefit of that partial shed dormer. And another angle, again, you can see the shed dormers, you can see the headspace. There's a little bit of a comparison here. Again, you can see how that gives you more space. And you can take a look at what they did with the railing. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous barn. And we can continue through just some different angles here of how they decorated this barn and how it really came out. So that, in a nutshell, is a barn. I know I kind of flew through that. There are more pictures of this barn online. Like I said, this is from our gallery. And I think at this point, we might be a little bit long, but let's see if we've got any questions.
Yeah, here's a question. Where would you recommend somebody go to get the information needed for a site plan?
Oh, very good. So you can definitely get site plans. Depends on what you need. There's a lot of times civil engineers might be called in. It depends on your permitting. You can go to your county. Sometimes they're going to have the site plans that are filed there. You can access it there. You can go to Google and you can actually just take a screenshot of that space that from your Google Earth's map. You can just take a screenshot and kind of place things that way. So there's a couple different ways to go, and it really depends on what your permitting criteria might be, how in depth you need to go with that. But to start with, I would say Google's probably a good shot. Your county, some counties also have what we call GIS maps, and you can see your parcel viewer there, and that would be a good resource also.
All right, and then what are the differences between the Barn Pro stalls and classic stalls?
Good question. I think that would be a good thing to be able to show you if we can get the screenshot up. Classic is going to be providing the European stalls. They have brass caps, brass fixtures. They're beautiful, beautiful stall. I can't fault them in any way, shape, or form. I can't find any fault. But our Barn Pro stalls, I think, are going to be, I would say, more basic, probably what you're more used to in your standard barns with the pull doors and that. So if Warren, are you manning? Can I take control of the mouse?
Yeah, you can take control.
Okay.
I was just going to try to grab.
I'm going to jump in there. If there's another question really quick, I'm going to jump in here. And can you type in stall? That's it. All right. So these top three, if you can see that all right, these top three packages are our barn stall, our Barn Pros packages, our stall fronts. Now, one of the main difference is that our stall fronts come as a complete package. So you get the stall front, it's a sliding door, you have your option of 3 different colors and 3 different styles. And then you also get the mats, stall mats, Dutch door, and all that. That's all inclusive in our stall package. Classic is a little bit more a la carte. So you're going to get your stall front, whether that be a high or a low European, and you can see they've got the brass caps, the brass fennels, so it's a little bit more of a higher end and more of a European look. Does that answer the question? Perfect. Anybody else got a question? Okay. All right, so that concludes today's event. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. If you have any other questions, please feel to reach out, and I am looking forward to hearing more about your project, so do give us a call. Thanks.